It's just before dawn on a February morning in a quiet residential neighborhood in Karachi, a city in Pakistan. Pakistani's chief intelligence officer, Mir Mazar Jabbar, is walking towards the home of a hacker who he's been tracking for over 2 years. Behind Jabbar is a team of Pakistani police officers. Jabbar arrives at the front door and knocks. You're probably already aware the FBI has a top 10 most wanted criminals list.
Oh, I was going to play the
But what you
game
may not know is the FBI also puts out a Cyber's most wanted list, which is a list of FBI's most wanted hackers. Jabbar and his team are about to raid the house of one of FBI's Cyber's most wanted. Just then the door opens. Jabbar and his team forcefully push the door open and raid the house. This is Darknet Diaries. True stories from the dark side of the internet. I'm Jack Resider.
So I'll drop a link for it. Go and do a like.
They did the whole thing
and subscribe to
when nobody was
Darknet Diaries. Well,
that's Adam Finch,
Jack's.
a victim to one of these types of attacks.
We didn't even know about it until a month later when we got the bill.
He's talking
about... Go back. You probably couldn't hear that. Let me get this back. I wonder if everyone fumbles through their first bit of this. All right, we'll go back a little bit. Anyway, like I said, I'll drop the link in the description. Like, subscribe on Jack Risinger's YouTube. He posts Darknet Diaries, talking about cybercrime. So... I'm going to speed it up a little. It's a little slow for me.
This is Darknet Diaries. True stories from the dark side of the internet. I'm Jack Resider.
I usually played it like 2 times.
They did the whole thing in a single weekend when nobody was...
Maybe too fast for some. Anyway, so again, got Adam here. And we're about to hear his story about what happened.
They did the whole thing in a single weekend when nobody was in the office.
That's Adam Finch, a victim to one of these types of attacks.
We didn't even know about it until a month later when we got the bill.
He's talking about his phone bill.
The bill was $24,000 more than normal.
Why was it so high?
The bill said we had called multiple pay-per-minute numbers.
Like 1-900-SEX and psychic chat lines?
Exactly.
When I was a kid, I used to goof off and just dial numbers. It was a lot of fun. Found some the typical choose your own adventure stories. It was kind of funny.
We tried to refute the charges with the telephone company, telling them we didn't make these calls.
But the calls went out.
They basically said, tough luck, pay up. We did go...
They don't really care. Whereas, you know, with credit cards, we get the... Yeah. I just dial numbers. One time I was bored. I just started hand dialing Vatican City. But, yeah, as we listen, we'll hear a little more about how they took the money, how they carried out the attack. It's pretty interesting. Not very difficult, but yeah.
Go to the police, but they didn't seem to care and ultimately gave us no help.
Something else a lot of times, police don't really know much about cybers, so they're going to push you off to the FBI.
Didn't want me to reveal what company he works for, because it's embarrassing for the company. Adam's company did pay the charges, though, because there was no other option.
Yep.
You may be wondering why somebody would break into an office and rack up an enormous phone bill for someone else. But here's the crux of the hack. The hackers were dialing pay-per-minute numbers that they owned.
So they were dialing from other people's numbers to their numbers, just taking all that money. Pretty inventive way to make cash in a nefarious way.
With this attack, they literally are turning other people's phones into ATMs. There are two main methods hackers use to do this. Method 1. The hacker will call a desk phone in a random office. But it's 7 p.m. and it's Friday, so nobody picks up. The call goes to voicemail.
When this little tidbit's over, I got a funny story about it. Something along these lines.
But some phones have the ability to check voicemail remotely.
To access your voicemail, please enter your PIN, followed by the pound key.
The hacker will first try the last 4 digits of the phone number. This is usually the default PIN for a voicemail box. Once they get into voicemail, they're looking for a specific configuration option.
To activate Do Not Disturb, press 1. To change a permanent forwarding number, press 2.
Bingo. Call forwarding. The hacker sets the call forwarding number to be the number.
I'm not sure if it's still like this, but for a while with cell phones, you didn't set your PIN. Your phone number was your PIN. So someone could call in from your phone numbers, call ID spoofing, and they get dropped right into your voicemail. It's fun also if they never set up. Yeah. It'd be funny if they didn't set up their voicemail like recording. You could actually record it, goof off, make fun of people. It was pretty fun. Haven't tried it in a little while, but a couple years ago it still worked.
Number of their pay-per-minute line. Now the next time anyone dials the phone, it will place a new call to the pay-per-minute line. Method 2. This method is a little bit more involved. Many companies are adopting voice over IP or VoIP phones in their office. This is where the phone plugs into the regular office network and not the plain old telephone system.
Yeah, so moving out of VoIP introduced a whole new plethora of vulnerabilities against phones. Take all the voice attacks and then add all in the gosh, I can hear myself, so it's annoying. Anyway, and then you add in all the network attacks that you could do. So, like if you don't have your data encrypted or somehow segmented off, it's going to be readable, someone just on the wire listening. So
most of the VoIP phones are dumb. They don't know what to do without the help of another system.
Yeah, they're just going to take commands from the PBX.
And that other system is called a private branch exchange, or PBX.
Something else to know, PBX, or public branch exchange, is not exclusive to VoIP. It's actually something that the PBX is what you would have internal to your company even before VoIP. You would have an internal PBX, so you could have multiple phone numbers that would go to the multiple different phones at the mini desk at your company, right? And that was all PBX. So you could have various cards in there. You could have a PRI number or a PRI card, which would actually be like, data out. Or not data, sorry. It's audio. But yeah. Big vendors were like, Avaya, Nortel. They both kind of merged. I think Nortel bought out, or no, I think Avaya bought out Nortel. And Cisco, they've got their call manager product. Which, those are all VoIP enabled now. So
When someone picks up the handset of a phone, the phone freaks out and says to the PBX, "Help! Someone just picked up the handset. What do I do?" The PBX is very friendly and says, "Calm down. just play a dial tone. And when the user pushes a number, the phone panics again and asks for help again. And the PBX says, don't worry, just play a digit tone. And this continues until the user pushes enough numbers and the PBX connects the call. But
Something else to know that, without or with VoIP, there is no dial tone or anything. Whenever you pick up the line, it's actually nothing until you actually start, connecting. So it's kind of like with your web browser. You open your web browser, and it's just nothing until you type in the web address that you're trying to go to. So it's similar to that. It's just a dumb endpoint that's, taking and receiving commands and data.
problem is, the PBX is sometimes too helpful. Nobody taught it who can and can't make calls. It wasn't properly secured. Anyone who knows the IP address of an insecure PBX can make phone calls that originate from that office. With this method, hackers find the IP address of PBXs and try to make a call using that PBX. They configure their phone, pick up the handset, and check for a dial tone. This takes patience by the hacker, because they have to hunt and poke into the darkness of the internet. But eventually, they pick up the phone and hear.
So that's not entirely true. Many times, much of those devices have a web interface, and many times those will be misconfigured, so people will be able to, search commands or search like key phrases that Google might find. So this is called Google dorking. So what you might have is, in parentheses, or not in parentheses, sorry, in quotations like, a via admin portal or whatever it is, right, that you're looking for. And you may have stuff on the internet that's just searchable, and you can find that stuff live. There's also other tools like Shodan and whatnot that are looking for IoT devices and PBX devices and whatnot. You could go there and you could find, PBXs that potentially are not properly configured.
Hear a dial tone. And to a PBX hacker, that is the sound of money. Now the hacker begins making calls to the pay-per-minute numbers. And they use robo-dialers, dialing hundreds of times a day, or thousands of times in a weekend. Calls are made to Guinea, East Timor, Lithuania. And for every minute connected results in more money for the hacker. More and more calls are made, more and more minutes are racked up. And this continues until someone, somewhere, notices the calls and stops them.
Many times you won't know until it's too late. Like with Adam's story earlier, he didn't know until the phone bill came. You'll have no idea. Then you get the phone bill and you're like, wait, who spent $24,000 calling these numbers?
So I guess my first question is, why can't the victim go to the phone company to refund the charges?
Because the phone company doesn't cover consequential losses. My name is Paul Byrne. I work for a company called UC Defense, which I founded to mitigate the threat of the crime of toll fraud, or otherwise commonly known as PBX hacking.
Paul has been protecting companies from PBX hackers since 2012. He says the phone companies have a legal right to collect any fees their customers accrue. This is usually spelled out in the contract.
So yeah.
We'll go into it a little bit. But yeah.
The victim tends to be found liable.
But most importantly, the PBX is not property of the telecom. It's owned by...
That's the key. It's your responsibility. It's your device. And if you misconfigured it, they're not going to help you. You put your device on their network and left it wide open to the internet, wide open to anyone to connect to.
By the victim. It was the victim's own negligence of security that resulted in this attack.
Exactly.
Just like when an ISP gives a company an internet connection, they aren't liable if that company gets hacked. How much is PBX hacking costing people yearly?
The best evidence is from the Communication Fraud Control Association. They estimate that PBX hacking is costing the business community in excess of $10 billion per annum.
That number.
And this video was 7 years ago. So, 10 billion. Let's see. So we asked Perplexity. So approximately $12.72 billion a year now. So a couple billion more.
Number 10 billion has doubled in the last 4 years.
There's absolutely
So in 4 years, it doubled. It hasn't doubled since then, but you know, we have other means that people are using to commit fraud, ransomware being the main one, right? And most likely, what they would do today, instead of you raking up all those charges, they're going to try to find a better avenue to make money. So what they would do most likely is use that rather than as their cash cow. That's the entry point, or that's the initial access to be able to get into the system to then start doing lateral movement and privilege escalation, etc., to take over more of the systems within the system, get more data, and then ransomware you.
no doubt that the fraud is on the rise, and it's primarily due to the vulnerabilities around VoIP.
These VoIP vulnerabilities are simply that companies aren't taking the steps to secure their PBX correctly. Often a business doesn't have anyone capable of configuring a PBX, so they outsource the job to a contractor. But they often go with the cheapest contractor to save money, which results in an insecure or hastily configured PBX.
Typically, cheapest is not always the best, right? Sometimes it could be cheap because they're not smart. They don't know what they're doing. So cheap doesn't always mean better price.
It's not an easy task to properly secure a PBX, since the PBX must be on the internet to receive.
So I think I disagree with that a little bit. I mean, it's not difficult to properly secure it if you know what you're supposed to do. And there's lots of information out there. I mean, you can find, detailed security best practices for PBX implementations. The government even has, the voice and video over IP STIG, which talks about their requirements for implementing VoIP. That's where you get stuff like, required to have it encrypted or, VLAN off. It's been a while since I've read the STIG, but yeah.
Incoming calls, you can't simply block all incoming access to it. To further complicate things, some offices have mobile workers who have.
So this is true to an extent, but many times you don't allow your workers. This is something that happened big through COVID. Users aren't allowed to just use their own devices, connect it from the internet. Most people have to go through VPN now.
Their office desk phone at home. So now a PBX needs to be configured to allow calls initiated from the internet. It's a delicate balance between what's allowed and what's not allowed. What's the average bill for a victim?
What we're seeing is a company with an average of 100 users on their phone system, they get compromised on a Friday night. On Monday morning, their phone bill will be in the region of €60,000.
Are the police able to help victims of this crime?
No, because the police aren't aware of this. They're used to other types of crimes that they know how to investigate, but when this incident occurs, they don't have the resources to even understand what the crime means and how they would go about investigating it.
As Paul said, the police just aren't equipped to handle international crimes. Calls are almost always going to foreign countries, such as East Timor, Cuba, Latvia, even Zimbabwe. Many of these crimes don't get reported. Companies fear bad publicity if they say they've been hacked. Sometimes victims contact the FBI, but the FBI is usually only interested in threats against the government or the country, or crimes that were over $1 million in damages. And most of this PBX hacking is in the tens of thousands. The FBI does appreciate when people report the crime, since it helps them collect data to build a case. In 2012, the FBI did receive enough reports about PBX hacking that they began looking at the data. and somehow they were able to track down who was making these phone calls. While looking at the data, patterns began emerging, which eventually led them to two men, Farhan Arshad and Noor Azizadin. Somehow, the FBI found out that the two men were on a flight to Kuala Lumpur in Malaysia. So the FBI contacted Interpol to arrest the two men. And within hours
So they'll go into detail about how they were caught.
of the two hackers arriving in Kuala Lumpur, Interpol raided their hotel and arrested both of them. The FBI was thrilled and began sending extradition requests to Malaysia. But after being held for 60 days, the Malaysian Attorney General let them both go free. According to the official report, the Malaysian Attorney General said, the arrest warrant obtained by Malaysian Home Ministry violated the technicalities involved in the requirements of the Extradition Act of 1992. Malaysia believed they had arrested these two men illegally. Farhan and Udin both immediately fled the country, got out of Malaysia, and went back to Pakistan. The very next month, the FBI indicted both men, and they added them to the Cyber's Most Wanted list and offered a $50,000 bounty for any information leading to the arrest of either one of them. I'm looking at the indictment form now, and it shows a list of victims that were targeted by these hackers, and I want to share with you the top 3 highest charges that I see on this list. A company in Carlstadt, New Jersey is claiming that they lost $78,000. A company in Englewood, New Jersey is claiming they lost $83,000. But the highest one on the list is the township of Parsippany Troy Hills in New Jersey. They're claiming these hackers racked up a phone bill of $395,000. According to the indictment report, the FBI claims these men dialed for 13 million minutes from 4,800 different hacked phone numbers. And once the FBI had a warrant for their arrest, they notified Pakistan, which is where they thought these two men were living. And in Pakistan, the FIA began researching it. The FIA is the Federal Investigation Agency, similar to the CIA in the US. And the chief security officer of the FIA is Mir Mazar.
Sorry. Gonna go get a drink. I'm gonna let this keep playing while I'm gone. I'll be back in a minute. Actually, no, I'm gonna leave it paused. I'll be back and play it. Did the ghost runner jump around while I was gone? What's funny in a second is getting caught.
Jabbar. And for years, the FIA had no leads towards catching these two individuals. Then the FIA got a tip. Somebody had claimed they knew the cell phone number of Adin. The FIA then worked with the telephone company to track down the GPS coordinates of that cell phone. And that's when Jabbar raided the home of Adin. Not only did he catch Adin, but Arshad was there in the house too, and both men were arrested on February 14th, 2015.
Something else about back then, much of that was terrorist funding. So many of these PBX hackers were using it to fund terrorism. At least that's what we were told.
It's ironic, don't you think? These two phone hackers were brought down because their phone number became known. In total, the FBI claims they caused $50 million in damages. What did Udden do with the money? He purchased about 50 plots of land around Karachi, his hometown in Pakistan, and was even investing about $400,000 in various local business ventures. And now, 2 years later, both men continue to sit in a prison in Pakistan.
Now, in their case, it was spending money for themselves, but I don't know how would you spend that money?
Still awaiting
I would never have gotten it, so I don't know.
their trial and sentencing. These two men were arrested for PBX hacking, but there are thousands of other PBX hackers that haven't been caught. And even though we don't know who they are or where they are, we do know one thing is for certain. PBX hacking will continue until security improves.